Blackboard. Let's go. So once again, this is our little fossil, Paragasiocrinus terrai. And so we can put that away now because we don't need to see it anymore. And you're going to be doing section 4 by the look of it. So here we go. Here's all the instructions. And we are in the group project folder on Blackboard in your course. So that's how you find this. Okay, and so your job is going to be to look up relatives of your creature that come either before or after it, and then do like a compare and contrast. That's the nutshell version of what it is that you'll be doing. So there are a couple of tools to do this. Now one way that's not on here, but it's probably the most useful, is that in the actual description of your fossil, the one that you gave, so ours was in this particular reference, there will often be a mention of all the other species that are there. And so you can just do a Google Scholar search. So let's do that. Boom, Paragasiocrinus. Okay, systematics, phylogeny, and ecology. That one is gold. So there we go. And this is that same paper we looked at before. And it's really good because it gives a list of, look at them all. See, all of these are relatives of Paragasiocrinus or actual members of that group. And if we can get to ones that are in the same genus, great. If not, related genera in the same family, that is just fine. And that's what all of these are. And so this one even helpfully has them broken out by time. So ours is somewhere in the bottom of the Missourian, and sure enough, there you are in Palo Pinto County, Texas. But some of the other ones are before it and after it. Yeah, look at that. So Des Moines, that's before, and Virgilian, that's after. And here's way before Atokan and Marwin. These are the bottom of the Pennsylvanian, so the bottom of the second half of the Carboniferous period. And so that's really helpful. And if you find something like that, bam, your life just got a whole lot easier because you got a whole bunch of names. So then once you have these names, like P. terrai and P. maguirei, then you want to go out and look up the references. And so normally with these, they'll say P. maguirei, and then they'll have a reference, name, and date. And so this one was published by a guy called Strimple in 1960, which I think he's a Harold Strimple. But super helpfully, this one is also, the descriptions are published in this paper as well. So let's scroll down past all the pretty pictures. There we go. And this one has a super helpful little table that compares and contrasts what's the same and different about these. The information in here is exactly what you want, but you're probably not going to find something as good as this with your fossil, although you may. Just it's kind of hit or miss, depends on what people have written. But here is the description for Paragasiocrinus asymmetricus, and whatever else, you should be able to find some of the original descriptions for some of the other species. And then the most useful part for you is going to be go down to the description. So there's going to be the diagnosis. This is what it looks like. Description is telling us a little bit more about what it looks like. And the more interesting part is going to be either called discussion or remarks. And so here it is right down here. And in that section, they're going to tell you how this particular species is different from all the other ones. So different from all those other species from about the same time, or different from the ones that come later. And so, bam, there you go. That's a gold mine, and that's what you're going to do. You're going to go through just like we did in section 1, and you're going to have to figure out what all these things mean. So it's known from infrabasal cones. You got to look up what an infrabasal is. It just means the bottom row of plates on a little swimming crinoid like the one that we've got here. And the terms will be different depending on exactly what it is you are researching. But it's going to be a lot of looking terms up and learning that way. And that's fine. This is just like an example of one thing that you can do. There's nothing particularly important to you about your fossil, but we're working on a skill. And so to do a specific skill, you got to have some kind of specific task. And that's exactly what this is. And so here are some of the other ones. There was terrai description, and I think we even got another one down here. Yep, Caliculus is down there. That's cool. And so once again, that's the name. That's the person who originally published the description. This is a list of all the things that have ever been called, like all the names that this particular creature has ever had. So you see it's moved around a little bit over the years. Different people have thought, oh, we can divide it up in different ways, but it turns out that no, they're all probably the same thing, according to this author. Range diagnosis, and somewhere there'll be remarks or discussion on here. Material. It must have come before that. I must have scrolled past it. There we are, remarks. There we go. So yeah, Very useful section. Sometimes in your publication you'll find something like this. This is super helpful in that it shows you your species. So we've got P. terrai from the Missourians. We're on this line right here, right up in there. And so who comes before this? Well, we've got Caliculus and Asymmetricus and whatever that one is. Platycrinatus. Oh, okay, neat. And so your job is to get one before or one after. But if you don't have that particular situation, like in this case, it looks like terrai is the end of the line, and this genus just dies out after that. So in that case, you're just going to pick two from before or two from after as appropriate. You want to get two other very close relative fossils that you can compare. That's the key here. It doesn't matter which ones, you can pick any of these ones, or there are other papers where you can pick other ones. These are just the ones that are included in this particular paper. So that's a nice example, but what if your example is a little bit harder? Well, let's go find, here we go. So it says in the instructions, you're going to use, first of all, fossil works. That's your number one. And if and only if that doesn't work, you're going to try Encyclopedia of Life, Wikispecies, and Worms. So bam, let's try fossil works. And so it'll bring you up on a page like this. You'll hit quick search. You'll type in the name of your thing. In my case, Paragassocrinus. There we go. And fine, and it'll take you through and give you this. So there is some interesting stuff from this page. So one, you're going to run into this little thing, which is ecology, which is the ecology of this creature summed up in very few words. Pass this information along to the person who's doing the ecology section, because they will want to know that it's stationary, it doesn't go anywhere, upper level epifaunal, so it lives in the ground, but it's right at the top, right at the surface where the ground meets the water, under the ocean, of course. And it's a suspension feeder, meaning it's picking up little tiny particles and like zooplankton, something like that. And where do you find it? You find it in coastal areas, okay, that used to be in the coast, or that used to be at the edge of a delta, or sort of shallow in between the high tide and low tide zones. And occasionally people find it on offshore, but like on a shelf. So these are all pretty shallow areas. And the other really interesting thing is you've got this age range on here. The age ranges on fossil works are a little buggy, and we want a real precise age range for the person that's doing that particular section. I think that's section 3 where you have to deal with time. But forward this information to them. Help them out, because yeah, it may end up being useful there. Okay. Now, in this case, we end up with some collections, and they'll give you a distribution, and that's great. And so let's, the thing to do is to open these guys up. And inside each of them, you may be able to find, yeah, a little collection. Now, you may have to click on a lot of these things in order to get one that actually comes up and makes sense. So here is an Agassiochrinidae, there we go, Paragassocrinus terrai. So that is our species. And so they're saying, yeah, we found it, and we found it together with all these other fossils. So this is also good information you can pass along to your ecology person. Each of these fossils lives in a particular type of environment, and together we're basically putting together what it is, what the environment looks like where all these things lived, who lived together, who made a nice little community. So that's neat, and this also gives you an exact formation. And so it's the golf course formation. That's kind of neat. Let's see, in the Morrowind, and it gives you a decent time range on that. And so you know, okay, this one is definitely earlier than our fossil, because our fossil comes from about, what was it, 305 million years ago, is what we figured out in one of the previous sections. And here, sometimes we get one that gives you multiple matches. These are all useful, so you can click on each of these references, and it will take you to the title of the paper. So let's look at that paper. And bam, there it is. Quite often you will be able to find this thing by going through Google Scholar. So if we copy that and we go to Scholar, boom, and we pop it in there, Part 2 Crinoids, Journal of Paleontology, and yeah, it's available on JSTOR. So I don't know how we go back and actually get the I don't know, triple a nap. I guess we don't search it on Scholar, or in most cases when you search it on Scholar, it's going to come up with the actual thing that you want, with the actual link to the paper. It'll probably be right over here. So in this case, we didn't get lucky. That's all right. And so we can go through these. We can look at Moore and Strimple because they've apparently found this. We can look at Dennis and Lawrence who have found this. And each time it's just going to give us a nice little, paper, or it'll give us a collection. So we can look through both collections. And so there we go. In that collection, there we have it. Paragaceocrinus disculus, neat, and Turris and Kendrickensis. So cool, they got 3 different species at this one place. That's pretty interesting. And they're all a little bit earlier than the one that we were studying. So that's what you would do with that. Now, let's say you don't get anything on Fossil Works for some reason. And often that just means the reason would be that the name has changed, something like that. You've got other options. So you can go in here and you can look at wiki species. So let's do that one, put in Paragaceocrinus, and it says, I can't find one on this one, so we didn't get lucky. Okay, fine. We can go to the World Register of Marine Species, which is marinespecies.org, and we can do a quick search for Paragaceocrinus. Oops. And what it would tell us is that we didn't find anything, but it would also say that by default you were only looking for things that are still alive. And so then you would do a new search, and that's the way you go in on this one. And it'll start out like that. That's the default. Extant means these things are still alive in the world. You turn that off, and now all of a sudden you can get to the fossils that are there. Everything that we're looking for will be living in salt water, so marine taxa is okay to leave ticked in every case that you're going to have. Let's see, here's our Fossil Works page again, and there's our Encyclopedia of Life. Encyclopedia of Life gives us one particular one, Paragaceocrinus kendrickensis by Strimple and Knapp in '66, which is the paper we were just trying to get to over in JSTOR. And so we can go back and look through that through regular Google, and we'll be able to find that paper. But so that tells us another name of a thing, another name of a member of this genus. We got Paragaceocrinus kendrickensis, we've got Terrai, which is our one, and we've got all those other ones. Now, if none of these things work, then you're just going to go in the same as the person in several of the other sections did. You're going to go to Google Scholar, and Paragaceocrinus, you're just going to type in the genus, and you're going to start flicking through papers. You're going to look through them. Now, in some cases, you'll see it written like this, Paragaceocrinus sp. That means they were sure enough to know that it was part of this genus, but they weren't sure enough to be able to say exactly which species it was. You're probably talking about somebody who's better at ecology and is not really a taxonomy person with their fossils. And that's okay. It takes all kinds, right? And so in that case, you can treat it as some version of Paragaceocrinus, and if they've got a good picture of it, you can still describe it and point out the similarities and differences, because they will be there, and that'll still be interesting. So that's the idea. And then at the end, you're going to have one more figure. So you're going to make a figure showing the 2 related fossils and appropriate figure legends. So that means you have to find individual descriptions, original descriptions for those related fossils. In ours, we happened to hit them. We got lucky in this first paper. And, not that one. Not that one. Oh, it looks like I closed it. So let's find it. There we are. Bam. Paragaceocrinus. There we are. Beautiful. Okay, and so we want to compare. We've already got a picture of Terrai in there in the first section, but we want to get a couple other ones in there. So let's say we picked Colliculus and Asymmetricus. So 1 through 3 are Colliculus, and 4 through 11 are Asymmetricus. 1, 2, and 3. So yeah, that's nice. We've got 3 different views of ours here. And so you can do the same thing. You figure out how you do your screenshot on your computer. You take your screenshot. There you go. Shoot your shot. Bam. And you're going to capture that either by saving it or copying it. So I'll save it, and then at that point you can proceed to crop this thing down in PowerPoint, or you can try something else. So this is for another one. Let's make a new slide. There we go. Let's get rid of that because we do not want it. And let's go to our GIMP program. And this is a real nice one. It's a good way to crop things down. You can also crop to some extent right in PowerPoint. If you're more comfortable with that, that's fine as well. I show you how to do that in the 3rd video toward the end of it. So let's open this up, desktop, and go down to, is that our new screen? There it is, our brand new screenshot. Okay, looking great. And so in this, what we can do is we can highlight the background, and boom, zap that background, and then we can highlight the individual things. Bam, and we can paste them in. So you can make a nice little, there we go, a nice little arrangement of your very own. And we gotta go back to GIMP. There we go, bam and bam. And let's grab our other one. There we are, bam and bam. All right. And so, as with everything, so that's one species, you put the other species beside it or whatever, use your own artistic license to make this thing look good. And then, as always, you're going to make a nice figure legend. So it's going to have figure, yours is probably going to be figure 3, but that's assuming there are 2 figures before it. You just make all the figures count in order. So figure 3 is going to be Paragacesocrinus, and you're going to say Paragacesocrinus from the Morrowind earlier, or whatever particular time they're from. And then you're going to say we've got a side view, a top view, and a side view of just an isolated infrabasal plate over here. And you can put little numbers or letters on there. You can call them 1, 2, and 3. Or A, B, and C, whatever you like. And you can line up your labels so that they are real neat. Pardon me. Sorry about that. So we have a little align tool on here. We can align them. And we can align these guys. Bam, right in the middle. Looking great. Yeah, or whatever you think looks good. Yeah, it's just about, this is kind of showing off in this part. That's what you do. You make this figure, and then you're going to copy and dump this figure out into the report, or you can save this whole thing as something like a picture. And so not a PowerPoint. We want to save it as some kind of picture. We can save it as a PDF and then insert the little piece of PDF in there. Or we can save it as a bitmap. We can take a photo from it. There's different ways to do this. So you can even screen cap it again from here. That starts to look gross if you keep screen capping it. You lose a little resolution every time. But 2 times you can probably get away with it for a report like this. Okay, that's all for section 4. So basically we're done with the report now. I hope this worked out well for you. Best of luck on this. And yeah, go out and learn a lot of stuff and learn, more importantly, how to do a lot of stuff. Thank you very much. That's all I got.